Hello, everybody. Welcome to Run the Day, the daily show from all of us here at the Run the Play Network. And I was gonna be a little celebratory. I was gonna revel in the irony of today's title, and then we lost to the fucking Rockies last night. So perhaps the Dodgers do suck, but I brought the foremost or the other Dodger expert on staff here, Josh, to talk about all things Dodgers today. More importantly, Josh, how you doing?
Doing well. How about yourself, Joe?
I am doing very well. And let's just get straight into it here. What the fuck is this team's problem here?
That is a fantastic question. In all honesty, I don't think anyone really knows, but I think just by the eye test, you could see that when they feel the pressure to win, they clearly have the talent to win. And then when the pressure's off, it almost feels like they kind of take it for granted that they're talented. And this isn't the first time we've seen this happen from the Dodgers. They did this in 2017 when they first started having their more serious runs in the playoffs, I should say. Um, and so it just feels like they know they're good and they know they can turn it on when they want to. And then they take teams like the Rockies for granted. And let's be honest, the Rockies, I think, have won, including yesterday, have won like 8 of 10 games or something like that, or in the last couple weeks. So they're playing well lately. And I've said this many times before, it's not about who you play, it's when you play them. And the Dodgers played them as if they were thinking, oh, we're playing the Rockies. They were thinking who they're playing rather than when they're playing them. And so again, I think the Dodgers take for granted their talent and take for granted the fact that they've been for good for so long that they just don't play hard when they need to play hard at this point in the season all the time.
Yeah, for me, I don't think, I mean, sometimes it is an attitude issue. I'm looking at you, Tejo. I love you, but you should have caught that ball last night. I mean, I could have caught that
Slide
ball
or
last night.
something.
So I don't want to say that is not a problem here, but for me, I it's hard for me to say, but Andrew Friedman kind of butchered the deadline. And I'm not just saying that as a Dodgers fan who's used to getting like Yu Darvish, Manny Machado, Trey Turner at the trade deadline. I'm saying this as a person who has had to watch this team. Is we do not have clutch hitting. Is we realistically should have swept Toronto a couple of weeks ago. But what were we like? 1 for 11 or something ridiculous like that with runners
You
in
were
scoring
2 for
position.
10 last night.
Yeah. Same thing last night. Same thing in the Angels series. Is we don't have clutch timely hitting. Alex Call has not been great for this team.
He's been striking out a lot when it matters.
I know. One of the best contact hitters at the deadline starts striking out. I love Robert Van Soyak, but he does tend to get a lot more swing and miss out of his players. That's just full honesty here.
Fun fact, I went to played high school baseball with Robert Van Skyok.
Really?
I did. And he was not a good player then, and he will admit that.
But he's a fantastic hitting coach, though. I'll give him credit.
Sometimes you can't predict baseball and you can't predict outcomes in baseball.
Yes. I'm the dude who picked the the Sacramento Athletics to make the playoffs this year. So I get it. But the big issue I have, and I understand people are getting healthy, is the bullpen sucks. The bullpen is genuinely awful. Who is your closer realistically right now? And I don't believe in like having a set closer, but there's not people who I trust to give the ball to in the 9th inning at this point. We've seen Vesia blow it. We've seen Trinan blow it and not really have his command. We've seen Ben Kasparius blow it. Jack Dreyer, I don't trust to be that guy. No. Anthony Banda, I do not trust to be that guy. So Alexis Diaz, it's not 2022 anymore. I don't trust him to be that guy. So who are we going to trust? Like Lou Trevino? Are we going to try Bobby Miller? like we just don't have that go-to high leverage arm anymore, and it's really affecting how Roberts manages the end of these games.
I think they got rid of Trevino, didn't they? Or is he still? Or is he just on the 40-man roster still?
Let me see.
I thought they got rid of Trevino. No, I agree with you. So I was at the Angels game last Tuesday, and as soon as I saw Alex Vesia throw the first couple pitches, I said, we're losing this game. And the reason why is because he could not throw strikes. And that has been this is something if I could, I'd ask Mark Pryor, as the pitching coach, as someone who is a pitcher, what are you doing to help these pitchers throw strikes? Because they are not throwing strikes. You see, with the pitching staff in general, lately the starting pitching staff has been a lot better at this lately. And honestly, it was just against the Padres. And I think it was because they finally had an actual game plan to pitch the Padres. And it was very similar to the last couple games that they played in the NLDS last year against the Padres, where they didn't give up any runs for like three or four games. Or 2 or 3 games, sorry. And that's because they finally had the same type of pitching plan. They figured out their weaknesses in their roster for their hitting, and they exposed it, and they took advantage of that. And so it feels like, what are you doing now? Where is this kind of pitching plan? Is it just not there, or is it just that your players aren't executing? And that's probably where I would say is probably where this is at. And the only reason I could say that is the Padres series compared to the series surrounding the Padres series. If you look at the Padres series, the Dodgers executed. Their pitching was good. They threw strikes. They had a game plan in their pitching staff, and they hit. They actually hit. They came through. They didn't just hit home runs. That's what you're seeing a problem with the Dodgers. They don't play what we call small ball. They don't bunt a whole lot or ever. They don't steal very much when they should be stealing, right? Shohei Ohtani taking off and stealing a base once in a while is not what I call small ball, right? They don't do hit and runs. And if they do a hit and run, Andy Pages doesn't look to see where the ball is and gets doubled off at first. So they're not playing small ball. They're not doing that on purpose, at least. And they're making a ton of mental errors on offense. So it is a culmination of what I would call fundamental and mental errors. And that's a lot of the reasons why the Dodgers are also not playing well. They're making a ton of mental mistakes. They're not doing fundamental things on the base path, at the plate, and on the mound.
Yeah, and I think this organization is too loyal to a fault to some of their guys. I understand he's been better. He was playing well for a while, but I think Miguel Rojas is very emblematic of this thing. Michael Conforto, especially, is very emblematic of what you were talking about here.
Yep.
I don't think a Dodger has pissed me off the way Michael Conforto has pissed me off, if I'm being quite honest here. He does not defend well.
Nope.
He is very lazy to the ball and left. And he gets, center cut pitches and pops them up. Who does that? It's going back to what you're saying is you have to be able to take advantage of that. I understand, even in the year of Aaron Judge 2022, when he broke the home run record, he missed middle pitches. And I get that. You cannot bat 1,000 on them. However, you should not be trying to, lift the ball so excessively that your swing turns into a U. You got to keep the bat head flat. You got to keep it flat through the zone. And no, he's just looking to, just put it in the air, where he's just put it in play. You're a talented hitter. It'll figure itself out.
Yeah, there's an age-old rule in baseball is put the ball in play and good things will happen. And that's something the Dodgers, they're not doing situational hitting. There's so many, like when I was at the Angel game, example would be, this is why the Angels won that game on that Tuesday. I mean, obviously they won all the games, but the reason why they won that game on Tuesday, I'm sitting in the stands and I'm watching this happen. Top of the 10th inning, runner starts at second, speedy guy and Dean, and first thing they do, strikeout. So you got one out. Max Muncy comes to the plate. Then he puts the ball in play and has a productive out where he flies out to right field. That's what you got to do. Runner on second, put the ball to the right side of the field. But it's almost useless because you're hoping that the next guy gets a hit because that's the only way that guy on third is going to score with 2 outs. And so they're not having productive outs. There's a lot of fundamental aspects of baseball the Dodgers are not doing. They're not having a ton of productive outs either. And so what did the Angels do when they first came up in the bottom of the 10th? Well, they attempted to bunt the runner over, trading out for a guy on third with 1 out. And Will Smith made a mental error and didn't pick up the ball to get the out. He decided, I'm going to let it roll. Well, how about this? How about you pick up the ball and throw it to first? Because if it does go foul, what does that mean? You give the guy another chance to get a hit, and their game's over right then anyway. So take the out. Why let it roll? Just take the out. And he didn't. And then the very next batter, Joe Adell comes up and hits that ball because they're playing in because guy ends up going to second. They play in, and a routine high hopper that Max Muncy could have fielded and thrown home to get the guy out and at least get an out goes over his head, and the game's over. So there's a lot of fundamental things the Dodgers aren't doing that, as I grew up, and I even heard Rick Monday say this when Andy Pages tried to steal second and didn't look for the ball. This is stuff they teach you in Little League. This is not like, oh, Andy Pages is only his second full year. This is your second full year. You're still learning. No, this is Little League stuff they're not doing right. And so, you have to question, is this a management thing that he's not getting on them? And I don't think it is, because he called Teo out and said he has to catch that. That's unacceptable. And I don't know if you knew this, but Mookie Betts, right after the game, had a private meeting with Roberts in his office.
I did see that, yeah.
And I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, Joe. I would not be surprised at all if we see Mookie starting in right field today or tomorrow. And Teo either is out of the lineup for a game or he goes back to left field, and let's hope Conforto doesn't play. And I could also see Conforto being DFA'd like Jason Hayward did.
Oh, it is time to DFA Michael Conforto here.
Yeah, I honestly think that's what they might do.
Yeah, because for me, and it's not the main reason this team won the World Series last year, but I say you saw it on Joe Kelly's podcast when he said, when we saw that we were playing the Yankees, is we were going to just put the ball in play. We were going to out fundamental them and everything. And yes, I've seen people say like that's a false narrative and all that, but it worked.
It's a real thing. I'm sorry. It works. It is clear that the Yankees last year had a complete history of making really dumb mental errors. That's what they did, and the Dodgers knew it, and they exploited it. I would have. I would have.
So that was, rather famously kind of how the title was won. And I understand, a lot of the times as an analytics organization, you don't necessarily want to bunt all the time. I have had this argument with my dad to death about run expectancy matrices and all that, right? And if you're not going to do it, which I believe is the right decision, then you 100%, like you were saying, have to have those productive outs here. And for whatever reason, like the lineup falls apart when Max Muncy is not in there. He's really the glue guy of this team. And I don't want to like offend the big three here when I say this, but he has the most professional, the best at-bats of anyone on the team.
He does.
He understands the strike zone. There's that great, famous, foolish baseball tweet where he's like, oh, Max Muncy is like the perfect robo ump because the ball was 0.03 millimeters outside of the strike zone. Therefore, I do not swing. He is incredible with his plate approach. He always makes the productive outs. Since going to the optometrist, which, by the way, this team needs to be sponsored by a fucking optometrist the way this goes, but
You do.
he has the highest WRC plus of anybody in baseball since going to the eye doctor. It's a 190. He's incredible. Shohei does Shohei things, and you know that. Mookie Betts, I have said it for the longest time, is he just did not have the strength, even after the illness, even all these months later, because, and Nomar pointed this out in the pregame show, is, when he was wrong, is that back shoulder on his swing is dipping, his elbow's coming up, and he's getting into that, like, I'm making fun of Conforto for. That's why everything gets popped up. And he's starting to fix that now. I'm like, thank God. But Freeman's been good, Smith's been good, but I like Alex Freeland right now, but I don't see him being, a productive player. I don't see Matt and Conforto. Pages has been so frustrating with most everything at this point. Is I understand, the free swinging approach has kind of gotten you to where you are, but you gotta lay off every now and then, man. You can't just go chasing everything. It's frustrating.
I would agree with you that the Dodgers in the past have been known for their plate discipline, except for this year. They have chased so many horrible pitches, Shohei included. And I think it was the series against the Blue Jays when he chased that pitch that struck him out that was clearly a ball, and it was never a strike to begin with. And again, Dave Roberts openly said, what is he doing there? Why is he swinging at that pitch? I don't know. He should have never had any business swinging at that pitch. So, yeah, it's just, I think, sometimes you get in a funk, right? That's just what baseball calls it, right? You get in a funk. And, the Dodgers have been in an elongated funk because they've had periods where Freddie Freeman was hitting awful. Mookie's been awful pretty much most of the season. He's starting to get it together, but it might be too late. Shohei, like you said, is Shohei. You just know he'll do something at some point, so you can't really do that. Honestly, I'm going to add in not just Max Muncy. I'm going to add Will Smith into this X factor thing for the Dodgers, and here's why. It's almost like they're treating him like LeBron James, because LeBron James, he rests a lot, right? He does load management, and that's a big thing in the NBA. Well, guess what they're doing right now with Will Smith? They're doing load management, and he's playing about half the games of the year, and Dalton Rushing is playing a lot more probably than he should because he's not hitting at all. He's another one of those bottom of the lineup guys who's not producing as much as he should. He had a great home run in the Angels game that I went to, but beyond maybe one or two swings every so often that is good, he's not hitting either. And you're taking Will Smith, who is pretty much the best offensive catcher, if not the best catcher, period, in major leagues right now, and you're actively taking him out of the lineup. Whereas, normally you just give him every third or fourth day off to just give him some rest. Whereas right now he's playing half the games. And that also is kind of hurting their offense as well, because if you have Freeland in there, and I like Freeland, but, I agree with you. He's not something that I would, at least for now, at least this season, he's not a long-term solution. He's just there because they have a few guys that are injured. And then you have Buddy Kennedy, who's in right now. You have Dalton Rushing in there right now. Conforto's in there right now. And so you're talking about 4 guys who are starting actively for the Dodgers, somewhat because of injuries, but also not. And that's half your lineup, pretty much. Half your lineup isn't producing. So that puts a lot more pressure on the Mookie Betts, and that puts a lot more pressure on the Teoscar Hernandez, and that puts a lot more pressure on the Andy Pages. Because like you said, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, probably the two most consistent hitters right now for the Dodgers, and that's saying something. But you're putting pressure on all those other guys who don't normally have that kind of pressure, because you have Will Smith, Max Muncy, Shohei. You have a lot more guys taking the pressure off them. And I'm not saying that someone like Teoscar or Andy Paz can't handle that pressure, because I think they can, but not all the time. And so you're relying more or less on those guys to start producing, and they haven't been producing as much lately. And so when you're in a funk like this, you just have to put the ball in play. You have to play small ball. You have to be productive outs, and they're not doing that.
I will say to push back on your Dalton Rushing's playing too much thing, is when I was putting together my top 50 player list, I didn't think about putting Will Smith on there, but I've seen at this point we're on year 6 of Will Smith. Is second half Will Smith is a thing. Is reading off the numbers, is his walk rate falls 3% from the first half to the second half. The strikeouts go up. The average is down 30 points. The on base is down 40 points. The slugging is down 40 points. The OPS is down 80 points in the second half. He has a 139 WRC plus in his career as a first half hitter. It drops to 114 in the second half because he gets tired. They play him too much and he just gets tired. And it is frustrating watching Rushing hit at this point, especially as someone who was touted when he came out in the draft as having one of, if not the most pro-ready bat, was touted for the longest time having the best bat in the organization in the minor league level. To see him just not hit like this is so frustrating, But if it's keeping Will Smith healthy, if it's keeping Will Smith playing an MVP candidate, then I'm going to take it. I'm not going to be happy about it, but I will take it, because I don't want to see, the 25-point drop off in his WRC plus, because he is too good. He is too valuable to have him fall off a cliff if he's playing every day. And maybe next year, who knows? The second half Will Smith does not become a thing, but I've seen too much of it to know that we have to keep him healthy and fresh and ready to go and be a beast, because we're going to need him with how close this division race is. And it's going to be a very fun environment this weekend in San Diego, because I know they are out for blood down there, and they're giving away rally towels all weekend. They're treating this like a playoff series.
As well they should.
Yeah. So I think
that's how the Dodgers should be treating the Rockies series right now.
Yeah.
Every series right now for the Dodgers is a playoff series. Every game they play should be treated as a playoff game. And like I said earlier, they tend to take things for granted because they know they're talented, they know they're good, they have this long history of winning. But that's not going to cut it anymore. They finally have a consistent contender in the National League West with the Padres. They're going to be contending every year. And so you can't just sit back and be like, we're the best team by far. You might be on paper, and I'm not even sure they are on paper anymore. And so you got to show the talent, and you got to play hard every day. And gosh, Joe, I sure hope that Teo is not in right field today, because whether he's on the bench and sits that out or he's in left field, because that's where he belongs. Especially, honestly, in a large park where you have to cover a lot of ground, like in Coors Field, I wouldn't be surprised if he at least sat out this game, if not the third game. And for that reason specifically, just because there's so much ground to cover. He's not a fast runner, and clearly didn't try a whole lot last night with that catch. I mean, you got to at least slide. You have to at least slide. I was an outfielder. Everyone was like, dive for the ball. Why don't you dive? Okay, well, diving can get you injured at his age. So, but you can slide. Sliding doesn't hurt you. So that was an easy ball to slide on, and he didn't even do that. He just tried to make a shoestring catch, and he's not that kind of defensive outfielder. And so you gotta do what you got to do to catch the ball. So let's hope that he doesn't play in the outfield. I would even say the rest of this series, because he's just going to have to keep making those kind of catches, and he's not capable of making those kind of catches.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a hard catch. It was a 94% catch probability here. And we can argue about the flaws of that model. I've certainly seen a lot of flaws in how they do it, and they're not transparent about it. But if you are supposed to catch the ball 94% of the time, I don't care like you have to hike the Rocky Mountains essentially every time you go catch a fly ball in Coors. You have to get it done. So I think
Well, the reason why
100%.
that was such a poor thing was he catches that ball,
Yeah.
and guys don't end up on second and third with that, because not when he threw it, he also threw it to third, and that allowed the guy to get on second. So I mean, well, no, there was nobody on, so I'm thinking of the play before in the third inning when he did that. He threw to third and allowed the guy to get to second, and then the single tied the game. He should have thrown the ball to second there. And so, yeah, I mean, he lets it drop in front of him. The guy's fast runner. He gets all the way to second because the ball hung up in the air for so long. That's the other reason why it was painful to watch him not catch that. The ball was in the air forever. It was up there. It was a hanging ball that only he can catch and only he should have caught, and he couldn't catch it. And so because it was up there so long, that runner was running hard. He got all the way to second, and it set up the walk-off hit. So that would have been an out instead. And then, the next guy comes up and gets a single instead of a walk-off hit.
All right. So the question is, because it's very obvious that Mookie Betts is going to be playing right field, at least today, maybe for the rest of the series. Who do you want the shortstop to be in this case if Mookie has to move permanently to right now?
Well, yeah, here's the problem is, if Tommy Edman were healthy, that's the perfect solution right there. You have a guy who's got plenty of experience at shortstop who can also hit. Miguel Rojas is not a guy who's going to hit all the time. He does and he's getting older. And even though he's got a great glove, he is getting older. So I wouldn't trust him all the time at short, per se. So, yeah, they don't have a clear solution at shortstop right now. And that's the risk they took by letting Mookie play shortstop, was they didn't have that clear solution. And so I'm not sure if you know off the top of your head when Edman can come back.
That would be September.
Yeah, so it's going to be a while. And so you're talking about having Miguel Rojas essentially play shortstop for a month, somewhere around a month. And that's not the end of the world because he can do it. But it's not the best solution you could have.
Yeah, because he grades out as an average defender at shortstop, which I think when he gets more reps probably goes down a little bit, just because, his outs above average at third is negative, and he's more of a second baseman at this point in his career. He's not the, I'm saving your no-hitter Kershaw guy anymore. He just doesn't have that range or athleticism. So I would honestly, if we have to do it, and honestly, I don't think we should do it permanently, because I don't think Mookie Betts is going to be a Gold Glove right fielder anymore. He's not that guy anymore, because a lot of his success in right field came from his speed and his athleticism, and the athleticism is still there. He is, believe it or not, one of the better defensive shortstops in the league.
He's number 4.
Yeah. So he's been great at short. The problem is the athleticism is still there. We know that, but he does not have the speed. It was that Angels game where he tried to steal and it looked bad. He got like the perfect jump and then still got thrown out by a decent margin. He doesn't have the speed to cover the ground in right field as well as he used to, but it's better than Hernandez. So I'd rather just go a Freeland Rojas platoon at short if we had to put Mookie in right. I just don't want to put Mookie in right, and we have been forced to with the bad play of Call, Conforto, and just how fucking lazy Teo is at times.
I would say if there's one thing about Mookie in right that would be no, I know obviously we just said that is better than Teo for sure. But the only thing I would add to that is that and the reason why is because Mookie's been playing short. Sometimes when you're an outfielder, because I played outfield and I was not a fast runner by any means. Sometimes when you're an outfielder, the best thing that you could do is have fast twitch, right? You have quickness, you have lateral quickness, which Mookie clearly has. Teo does not have any lateral quickness, and he doesn't have speed. And so when you can react off the bat, well, like Mookie can, when you have the quickness in your first few steps off the crack of the bat, that says a lot more and is actually more important than speed. Now, we saw with Cody Bellinger when he had all of that. He had quickness, he had fast twitch, he had first step, he read the ball off the bat well, and he had ridiculous speed. And that's why I loved Cody Bellinger. And even though he needed to go somewhere else to find his swing, I still hated that we got rid of him because you just couldn't. His defense was unmatched in the outfield, in my opinion, and still is. But that's to some degree what Mookie Betts has. He has quickness, he has lateral movement, and he reacts well off the bat. That alone can make up for lack of speed and easily make a catch like Teo's look, even though he made it look like it was, the hardest catch in the world. Mookie would have made that a routine play or easier because he has quickness. So sometimes when you're an outfielder, it's not always about speed. And honestly, I'd rather have the arm strength than the speed as well. And so we know Mookie can throw. And so there's a lot of things I think that can make up for his lack of speed. Would I like him to have speed? Absolutely. But there's so many other factors to being an outfielder that can, the other thing is Teo takes terrible routes to balls. He does not run in a good route either most of the time. So Mookie does. So again, there's so many other factors to being an outfielder besides speed that I can be okay with Mookie's lack of speed. I can be okay with that as long as those other things are there, and I think they are. Mookie has a huge baseball IQ, a high baseball IQ, and that athleticism, as you mentioned, is still 100% there, and so it just makes too much sense for him not at this point. If they're going to continue to have a good season and not just continue to have a terrible season and continue on the trajectory that they're at, they have to make some sort of drastic change, and it has to start with Mookie in the outfield.
So I was going to ask, because we are about ready to wrap things up here, what would be like the one change you could make, if anything, to this team? And you're going to go with Mookie Betts has to be your right fielder?
No, there's plenty of other things that I would make, but I'm talking about defensively in the outfield. That's the one thing I would do. If I could do anything, it'd be to get all these guys off of the injured list. Obviously, that's what I would do. If everyone could be healthy, because we've known that the Dodgers, if when healthy, look at their pitching staff. Their pitching staff is finally healthy, and look how much better they've gotten since they've gotten healthy, and they're not having all these AAA starters. Yeah. So that's the way. The bullpen's not good because they got so many injuries to some of their high leverage arms from last year, and they have a lot of key position players that are not playing as often or injured.
Yeah. For me, like, it's the bullpen. It has to be the bullpen. Is Trinan is, again, when he gets his command, if he gets his command, will clearly be the closer. But like, who is your fireman reliever? Is it Vesia? Is it Kasperius? We just don't know at this point. So when Kopech comes back, hopefully he comes back, he looks good. We're not getting Gratterall back, even though our passive-aggressive king decided to post a video of him throwing a bullpen the day after Robert said it's very unlikely he's coming back. really, we just got to ride those two arms in particular to a championship here if we're doing it from the bullpen. But yeah, we need bullpen help desperately.
What if they bring back Joe Kelly? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh God, no. I am. I mean, I like Joe Kelly, but I've never been a Joe Kelly reliever fan because his command has been erratic for all but like 13 innings in a postseason run 5 years ago.
Yep, pretty
So
much.
yeah, I'm not a Joe Kelly guy, but if he wants to come back for the vibes, he can be like a player consultant or something. I just don't want him throwing innings, even like low leverage innings for this team anymore.
That's why he doesn't have a job.
Yep. And with that, that'll wrap up today's show. But let us know, are the Dodgers doomed? It could be anything, really. But I still believe I got the World Series merch on for sure. Thank you, everyone, for coming out and watching the show today. Thank you for Josh to stopping by and talking ball. It's always a pleasure. And with that being said, take care, stay safe, and play ball.